I was her boss, but in that brief moment, everything I had buried for years shattered. If I hadn't spilled my coffee on her resume, maybe I wouldn't have noticed the lipstick-stained corner. And if I hadn't noticed the lipstick, maybe I wouldn't have seen the girl behind the paper, the one who'd ruin everything. Her name was Emery Lane. 24. Fresh out of grad school. A Columbia honors student with a radiant smile and no clue that the woman across the table had spent 17 years building a career to outrun her own heart. I, Cassandra Reese, Senior VP at one of Manhattan's top PR firms, was supposed to know better. I wasn't supposed to feel anything. Not when she shook my hand and called me ma'am with a teasing smirk. Not when her perfume all citrus and heat lingered in my office long after she left. Not when she walked in on her first day, pencil skirt too tight and confidence too loud, and made every straight man in the department forget how to use a stapler. But I did. God help me, I did. Our story didn't begin with stolen glances across mahogany desks. It began with war. Emery was brilliant, too brilliant. The kind of intern who challenged meetings, rewrote briefs, and corrected the CEO's grammar with a wink. Everyone either loved her or hated her. I wasn't sure which I did more. I pushed her harder than anyone else. Assigned her the worst accounts. Gave her impossible deadlines. I told myself it was tough love. That I was training her. Truth was, I needed her to stay in her place. Because if she got too close, if she looked at me like that again, I didn't trust myself not to fall. One Thursday, the inevitable happened. We were alone in the elevator. Late night. I had stayed behind to prep for a merger. She was wrapping up a media list. She leaned against the mirrored wall, eyes watching me through the reflection. You always work this late, Ms. Reese. It's Cassandra after 8 p.m., I replied, instantly regretting it. She smiled. Good to know. I turned away. She didn't. What did you want to be when you were my age? She asked. It was so innocent, so impossibly soft, it knocked the breath out of me. I didn't answer. Because the truth was, at her age, I wanted to be free. I wanted to dance barefoot in a bar in Queens. I wanted to kiss a girl named Mia under a bridge in Brooklyn and not feel like the world would end the next day. But instead, I put on heels. Learned the language of men in power. Became the kind of woman no one asked about family, or feelings, or first loves. So I did what I always do. I changed the subject. Get some rest, Emery. You'll burn out like the rest of us. She didn't speak again until the doors opened. But her eyes stayed on me until I walked away. The first crack in the dam came a week later. A client dinner. I was wearing my armor black silk blouse, tailored pants, hair twisted tight. She arrived late. Rain-soaked. Laughing. Sorry, she whispered in my ear, droplets clinging to her lashes. The subway had a mood. And then, as if the room hadn't gone silent at the sight of her, she reached out and straightened the collar of my blouse. Just a touch. A single second. But something inside me split. That night, I dreamed of her. Not in a cliché way. Not sex or moans or silk sheets. Just her hand, brushing mine in the dark. Her laughter, echoing through an empty office. Her voice, saying my name like it was the only word she knew. When I woke up, I cried. Because I knew. It was happening again. Flashback. Summer, 2006. Age 22. Her name was Mia. Freckles. Loud laugh. We were inseparable until we weren't. She kissed me once under fireworks on the 4th of July and I told her it was a mistake. Because it wasn't just my heart on the line back then. It was my mother's approval. My father's political campaign. My scholarship. My whole future. So I folded that part of me up like an old letter and buried it deep. For 17 years, I didn't touch it. Until Emery. 2 months passed. Rumors stirred like they always do. A glance too long. A hand on her lower back at the conference. An inside joke laughed at a little too hard. I tried to smother it. Buried myself in work. Took calls during weekends. Fled the office when I knew she'd be there late. But the heart, I've learned, doesn't like to be ignored. It all came to a head on a Friday. We were prepping for a pitch with an international beauty brand. High stakes. Pressure so thick you could cut it with a nail file. Emery handed me a revised deck, flawless, of course, and lingered after the rest of the team had left. "Why do you hate me?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I looked up. Caught off guard. "I don't," I said. "You act like you do." I didn't answer. She stepped closer. "Do I make you uncomfortable?" "Yes." "Do you wish I'd never walked in that day?" "No." "I see the way you look at me," she said. "And then you shut down. Every single time." I couldn't lie anymore. "I'm your boss," I said, finally. "And you're..." "What?" "Young. A woman. Too much like someone you used to love." She didn't give me time to respond. She kissed me. Fast. Fierce. Terrified. And I kissed her back. For a second. Maybe two. And then I pushed her away like she was fire. Because she was. She didn't cry. She just stood there, lips parted, breath shallow, and waited. I didn't speak. The silence was louder than any outburst. Louder than the voice in my head screaming that I'd just crossed the line I'd guarded with my whole life. And then, quietly, she said, "I'm sorry." She turned to leave, her heels echoing against the marble floor, and I let her go. I should have stopped her. I should have said something, anything. But all I could think was, this can't happen. Not again. Not with her. The next Monday, she transferred departments. HR told me it was voluntary. She'd asked to be reassigned to a media campaign team in the Chicago office. Said she needed a new challenge. I stared at the email and felt something inside me collapse. She was running away from me. Or maybe, I had pushed her to the edge and dared her to jump. And she did. Weeks passed. New interns came and went. The office buzzed with fresh projects, deadlines, and meaningless chatter. I functioned on autopilot, composed, decisive, cold. That was the only way I knew how to survive. But at night, my mind went elsewhere. To Emery. To the sound of her laugh in the elevator. To the taste of regret in that kiss. To the look in her eyes when she whispered, "Do I make you uncomfortable?" She had no idea. She didn't know the years I'd spent clawing my way up this building, trying to be untouchable. Trying to forget the summer of 2006. Trying to replace every instinct with strategy, every feeling with facts. And she shattered all of it with one goddamn kiss. Chicago didn't fix anything. One evening in October, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. I didn't leave because I was ashamed. I left because I couldn't sit across from you every day and pretend I didn't feel it too. I stared at the screen for 23 minutes before I replied. "I never hated you." She responded instantly. "I know." 2 days later, I booked a flight. I told no one. Not even my assistant. Chicago was colder than I remembered. Wind that stung like guilt. I checked into a hotel near the Loop and waited until morning to text her. "I'm here." She didn't reply. I went to a cafe near her office. Ordered black coffee. Waited 4 hours. Still nothing. So I left. It wasn't until midnight that she knocked on my hotel door. No makeup. Wet hair. Hoodie zipped to her throat. She looked young, impossibly young, and my heart ached. I stepped aside. She entered without a word. She didn't sit. Didn't take off her jacket. Just turned to me and said, "I thought if I put 1,000 miles between us, maybe it'd go away." Did it? No, she whispered. Did it for you? I shook my head. That night wasn't fireworks. It wasn't some cinematic confession or tear-streaked kiss. It was quiet. Messy. Real. We talked. 4 hours. About everything and nothing. About Mia. About fear. About how love, for some of us, had never been safe, only dangerous in prettier clothes. And then, slowly, she reached for my hand. And I didn't pull away. We spent the weekend in a bubble. No office. No titles. No politics. Just two women peeling back layers neither of us knew we still carried. She told me she'd loved girls since high school but kept it quiet after one rumor ruined her junior year. I told her about Mia. And how I'd never forgiven myself for breaking that promise under the fireworks. She said, "I see you, Cassandra." And it was the most terrifying, beautiful thing anyone had ever said to me. But bubbles burst. Monday came. She had work. I had a flight. We stood by her apartment door like teenagers fumbling with heartbreak. "I don't know what this is," she said. "Neither do I. But I want to find out." I nodded. Me too. What followed wasn't easy. We kept it long distance. Texts. Late night calls. Brief weekend visits masked as consulting trips. Every touch tinged with risk. Every goodbye like tearing pages from a book we hadn't finished writing. I couldn't tell anyone. Not yet. Not my parents. Not my colleagues. Not even myself some days. Because what if it didn't last? What if she woke up one day and realized I was just another chapter, a tragic detour on her way to someone easier? Someone less complicated. But she never made me feel like a detour. She made me feel seen. And that terrified me more than anything. 6 months passed. The Chicago campaign ended. She returned to New York officially promoted, no longer under my supervision. It should have made things easier. It didn't. Because now, the rumors returned. The stolen glances. The elevator silences. The way our laughter lingered just a little too long. And one day, the worst happened. Someone saw us. We were at a quiet wine bar in Brooklyn. Not holding hands. Not kissing. Just talking. But it was enough. Enough for the wrong eyes. Enough for whispers to spread like wildfire. By Monday morning, the executive board had called a meeting. I sat across from 7 men and 1 woman, all older, all straight, all smiling like they already knew the ending to our story. "Ms. Reese, we're concerned about recent allegations of favoritism." My mouth went dry. "I assure you," I said, "there was no professional misconduct. Ms. Lane and I were not in the same department. We're aware. But optics matter." And then the line that gutted me. "You're too valuable to lose over a personal mistake." I knew what they were saying. "We'll let you stay. Just let her go." I went home that night and threw up in my sink. Emery knew something was wrong. She called. I didn't answer. She came to my door. I didn't open it. Because the truth was, they weren't wrong. She was my mistake. Not because she wasn't worthy. But because in this world, 2 women like us don't get happy endings without consequences. But then something happened. Something I didn't expect. She didn't let me go. That Friday, she requested a meeting with the board. Voluntary. She walked in head high, voice steady, and laid everything bare. She told them the truth. That she was proud of our work. That she was proud of herself. That love wasn't weakness. That their fear was. And then, she handed in her resignation. Not because she was ashamed. But because she refused to let them punish me for choosing her. I chased her down the lobby stairs. Rain pounding outside. Her coat clutched in one hand. Mine in the other. You didn't have to do that, I gasped. She turned, soaked and wild-eyed. Yes, I did. Why? Because I love you. And just like that, the dam broke again. So I kissed her. Right there. In front of the whole damn building. And for once I didn't care who saw. After the kiss, there were no speeches. No applause. Just silence, loud and vulnerable and real. Emery pulled away first. Her fingers brushed mine, lingering like a question. What now? She whispered. I looked back at the office windows above us, floor after floor glowing with ambition and caution and everything I had once built to keep myself safe. And I realized something. I didn't want safety anymore. I wanted truth. We start over, I said. This time, we don't hide. She smiled, not the coy grin she gave in meetings or the playful smirk she wore when she won arguments, but the one I'd only seen at 2 a.m., curled up beside me on hotel sheets, whispering old dreams and childhood scars. I like that, she said. We didn't go back inside. Instead, we went home, our home, eventually. Not right away, of course. It took time. She stayed with friends for a while, then moved into a small place in the East Village. We dated like normal people do, dinners, Sunday morning coffee, quiet nights in. We fought, sometimes. About dishes, about past wounds, about my tendency to retreat into work when things got hard. But through every storm, she stayed. And I learned how to, too. Leaving the firm wasn't immediate. But it became necessary. Not because they pushed me out. They didn't dare. The scandal had passed, the board had issued a quiet statement, and the rumors died the way all corporate gossip does, replaced by fresher drama. But I couldn't stay. Not when every corner of that building whispered memories of who I used to be. Not when the price of staying was pretending I hadn't finally found something worth losing everything for. So I left. I started a boutique PR agency with 2 close colleagues. We worked with queer-owned businesses, mental health nonprofits, underdog brands. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And for the first time in nearly 2 decades, I wasn't chasing a title, I was chasing a life. Emery flourished. She published think pieces on workplace equity and queer identity in Forbes, The Cut, Vox. She led seminars, spoke on panels, and became the face of a national campaign about ethical leadership in corporate America. People started calling her the voice of a generation. I just called her mine. My parents found out eventually. Of course they did. It happened quietly, during Thanksgiving dinner. They had flown in from Connecticut, expecting the usual wine-soaked small talk and business updates. But that night, Emery came with me. She wore a navy blue dress and brought a bottle of Pinot Noir. She made my mother laugh and complimented my father's cufflinks. And when dinner was done, she reached for my hand under the table. And I didn't pull away. There was a moment after dessert, when my mother was clearing dishes and my father was refilling his scotch, when the silence settled like a second skin. Then, my father looked at me. I always thought you'd marry a man, he said. I held Emery's hand tighter. I always thought I'd have to, I replied. He didn't smile. But he didn't look away, either. And somehow, that was enough. The years that followed were ordinary in the most extraordinary ways. We adopted a senior dog named Harriet who hated thunderstorms and loved peanut butter. We argued over Netflix shows. We planned trips and never took half of them. We cried during Pixar movies and laughed at bad takeout. We built something. Something real. 3 years later, in a tiny garden in Brooklyn, we got married. It wasn't a spectacle. Just a handful of friends. A string of fairy lights. A thunderstorm that held off just long enough for us to say our vows. Emery wore a soft ivory jumpsuit. I wore a suit the color of plum wine. She cried when I said, "I never knew how to be brave until you made me feel safe enough to try." I cried when she said, "I loved you when I hated you. I loved you when you couldn't love yourself. And I'll love you through every version of us." After the kiss, someone popped champagne. Harriet barked. And in that moment, I knew this was the ending I never thought I'd get. Not because of who I loved. But because I finally believed I was worthy of being loved back. I still get emails sometimes from young women in the industry. Some know our story. Others just see a name in an article or on a panel. They ask, "How did you know when it was worth the risk?" And I always write the same thing. The moment I looked into her eyes and realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life being afraid of myself. Because here's the thing they don't tell you. Being queer in corporate America isn't just about the glass ceiling. It's about the invisible walls we build inside ourselves out of fear, ambition, trauma, silence. I lived behind those walls for 17 years. And then a girl with lipstick on her resume kicked them down with one smile. She wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But we were honest. And in the end, that was enough. Years from now, someone will ask me if I regret it. If I regret breaking every rule I swore I'd never bend. If I regret risking a career I fought tooth and nail for a girl whose hands shook when she first told me she liked women. And I'll smile. I'll look at my wife still brilliant, still wild and say, I only regret not loving her sooner. The end.